You ever wonder, can just one single accidental moment change everything? Like, could one thing you didn't even mean to do have the power to wipe a whole lifetime of mistakes clean? Well, today, we're diving into this incredible story from the ancient Shiv Puran that asks that exact question. It's this amazing tale about sin, about fate, and about a path to redemption you probably wouldn't expect.
And, this isn't some new question. It's been at the very heart of spiritual seeking for thousands of years. The story we're getting into today actually starts with this exact query. You've got these ancient sages, and they're trying to figure out how to navigate a world that's just full of moral traps.
So here's what's interesting. This whole story about sin, it doesn't actually start with a sinner. It starts with saints. We jump in with this group of really wise sages who are just deeply worried about the state of the world. And they take this super important question to the great Sutaji.
See, they looked around and saw humanity really struggling. The texts call this time the Kali Yuga. It's seen as the toughest spiritual age, just an era of conflict and, moral decay. So you can feel their urgency, right? Sin is everywhere. Being good is hard. And they just needed a straight answer. Is there a real, reliable way for people to find purity and actually cleanse their souls?
And the answer they got back, it was pretty profound. It wasn't some complicated ritual or a crazy, impossible penance. It was the Shiv Puran itself. The sages were told that just listening to these sacred stories about Lord Shiva, that alone had the power to totally transform a person, to wash away even the absolute worst sins. I mean, that's a huge claim, right? Well, the story that comes next is basically the proof.
So to really show off this incredible power, the story gives us the ultimate test case. We're talking about a guy who has fallen about as far as a person can possibly fall.
Let me introduce you to Devaraj. Now, he was born a Brahmin, part of the priestly, scholarly class. His life was supposed to be all about learning and piety. But Devaraj, he chose a path that was the absolute opposite of that.
Yeah, he just threw all his duties out the window. He became a gambler, a womanizer, a total cheat. The texts paint this picture of a man who's cruel and has basically no moral compass. I mean, his actions got so bad that his own community kicked him out, leaving him with nothing.
So now, he's totally alone, he's broke, and he's just wandering around with no purpose. Then one day, sick and just completely exhausted, he stumbles into the city of Pradeshthan. And here's where fate steps in. He looks for shelter in the one place that could actually change his entire destiny, a Shiva temple.
And you've got to pay attention here, because this is the turning point. Devaraj is not in the temple to pray, not at all. He's just trying to get out of the heat. He's burning up with the fever, he's barely even conscious, and while he's lying there, a recitation of the Shiv Puran is happening. He's not trying to listen, he just happens to overhear the words. It's completely passive, a total accident.
Okay, so this one accidental act, it sets the stage for the story's big climax. Devara's life is coming to an end, and what happens next is basically a cosmic battle for his soul. His body, already worn down by his lifestyle and now just destroyed by this fever, it just gives out. Devaraj the sinner dies right there, inside the temple grounds. And in that moment, right after he dies, two different celestial forces show up. So on one side, you have the grim messengers of Yama, the god of death and justice. They're here to drag Devaraj's soul to the hells to pay for his lifetime of sin. But then, something nobody saw coming happens. On the other side, these radiant, glowing messengers from Shivalok, Shiva's blissful home, they appear too. And boom, we have a confrontation. As Yama's guys move in to grab Devaraj's soul, Shiva's messengers step right in front of them, blocking their path. They literally form a protective shield and declare, "Nope, this soul doesn't belong to you." And you have to wonder, how is that possible? By every measure, this guy was a textbook case for punishment.
And then comes the bombshell from Shiva's messengers. They say that because Devaraj overheard the Shiv Puran just before he died, his entire slate of sins has been wiped clean. Just think about that. That single, passive act of listening completely canceled out a lifetime of being a terrible person. He's now under Shiva's protection, and they escort him not to hell, but to Shivalok, the realm of grace. Incredible.
I mean, it's an almost unbelievable outcome, right? But the story doesn't stop with Devaraj. The tale of his impossible salvation starts to spread, and it reaches another soul who is just drowning in guilt and desperation. And this is where the narrative gives us a really powerful contrast to Devaraj's whole accidental grace thing. It's about to show us a very, very different path to redemption. This person's name is Kanchula, and she had also lived a pretty sinful life right alongside her husband. After he died and, well, suffered a terrible fate, she was just left completely consumed by remorse and just terrified for what would happen to her own soul.
So when she hears this incredible story about how Devaraj, this huge sinner, was saved, a little flicker of hope ignites inside her. But here's the key difference. Unlike Devaraj, her approach isn't accidental at all. She actively goes looking for a sage. She knows what she's done wrong, and she is desperate to find a way out.
And her plea to this sage, it's just heartbreaking. You can really feel the weight of her guilt. This is not a passive moment. This is a cry for help coming from the deepest part of her. She is intentionally going after the same grace that Devaraj just happened to stumble upon. And this is just a brilliant way to illustrate the two sides of the same coin. You've got Devaraj, who represents salvation through pure, unearned grace. It's like a gift he got without even asking for it. Then you have Kanchula, who represents salvation through active seeking, a path she built herself out of repentance, devotion, and a real, conscious desire to change. And what the story shows us is that both paths, they lead to the exact same place.
So, what's the big takeaway here? What does this all mean? The ultimate message of this incredible story is one of just radical hope. It's suggesting that no one is beyond saving. It doesn't matter if you just stumble into grace by accident or if you chase after it with every fiber of your being. The door to redemption, it's never really closed.
And that leaves us with one last really powerful question to think about. The story of Devaraj shows us the massive, unbelievable power of just a single, unintentional act of hearing. So it really makes you wonder, if that is possible, what's the potential for someone who, like Kanchula, actually chooses to walk a path of conscious, dedicated devotion their whole life? What could they achieve?